One thing that I think needs to be brought up is that CeeDee Lamb is a very versatile receiver. I want people to understand this. CeeDee Lamb played a lot of snaps in the slot last year because who was going to play in the slot last year? Was it going to be Tolbert? No. Was it going to be Cooks? No. Was it going to be Michael Gallup? No. Those guys aren't slot receivers. CeeDee Lamb can play in the slot. CeeDee Lamb the year prior played 50-50 in the slot. The year before that, he played 70% outside, 30% inside. I think it's 60% outside, 40% inside. So, CeeDee Lamb is a versatile receiver. And I hope that they explore that versatility when it comes to, making a decision in that wide receiver 3 spot. So let's just say Jalen Moreno-Cropper breaks out and he's the best out of those guys. He's a slot receiver. Put CeeDee Lamb on the outside, let him play X. I want people to understand this. Everyone's like, oh, he can't play outside receiver, this, that, and third, even though he had like 740 yards and 4 touchdowns and like 58 receptions playing on the outside where he didn't get as many snaps. I think he got like 30% of the snaps outside this year, and he had those amount of numbers. NFL defenses respect CeeDee Lamb's ability to play outside. I want people to go back to, you want to know, and I'll even pull up the tape as we speak right now, just so that I can give people a visual on this, on what I'm talking about. There was a game, week 17, the game that, the Lions are still crying about to this day. I want to pull up this tape because I want to show people something. This is on the fly here. There was a play. It was that Brandon Cooks touchdown.
I know the play you're talking about. Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb playing on the outside and garnering so much attention on the outside is the reason why that play happened, because I got it pulled up right now. We're building the plane while we're in the air. Let me present this to the national public. Okay, cool. Here we go. This is the play. CeeDee Lamb is on the island. He's the X receiver in this play. You got a 3-by-1 set. Okay. Now they have a safety over the top. They have a safety, and then they have a corner up on CeeDee Lamb. They have a safety over the top. Look at the one-on-ones created on the 3-by-1. Jalen Tolbert, one-on-one. Ferguson, one-on-one. Cooks, one-on-one. They're going to run China routes. Both Ferguson and Tolbert are going to run China routes. Brandon Cooks is going to run a corner route. Dak reads this pre-snap. He's garnering 2 guys, CeeDee Lamb on the outside playing X. And you see here, Dak sees this. He knows these guys are going to be running China routes, and he knows, boom, Brandon Cooks right there. So that's the effect that you see from CeeDee Lamb, even when he's not making plays and making highlights. You see that as an X receiver, an NFL team on a big down said, we're going to have a corner and a safety playing over the top because we may need to make sure that he cannot make plays. He baited those guys to that side of the field where they had the 3-by-1 and they had one-on-ones across the board.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, and I think that when it comes to CeeDee Lamb, what makes him so dangerous is his versatility in playing both slot and outside with such elite prowess. I mean, the fact that this dude just catches any balls that are thrown his way, with the exception of a couple, of course. But like, this man, we saw him grow up before our very eyes. Like, we saw him, like, it's just unbelievable. And especially with how young he is, and how fast he's climbing up them record books as well. In terms of receiving yards and touchdowns. Like, we've seen this man go from like wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 1 to then superstar level, and now this. Like, it was just an unreal progression. And the fact is that, considering that 92-yard touchdown he had in the same, I mean, he had 200 plus yards in that same game, even when he was being teamed the way he was versus Detroit. And I think that shows the great connection he has with Dak Prescott. But then talking about this wide receiver 3, I think another thing that helped him out this year was that you had a dude in Brandon Cooks who was taking attention away from you. And then you also have other dudes like Jalen Tolbert and company. And I know you had Michael Gallup there, but I mean, he wasn't really that effective. I think that what's going to change this year is that Michael Gallup, I don't think is going to be a detriment this year. And I wanted him to recover. It wasn't there. And I think that Jalen Tolbert, I think that he'll be solid for you. Again, we're not asking this dude, not saying we were at any point in this show, but in terms of where I'm looking at it, I just need Jalen Tolbert to be a wide receiver 3. And then looking at what's his face, the other dudes like Brooks. You look at Flournoy, Jalen Cropper. Like that's a guy I was high on. If those dudes can just give you something, you're good. This team's set. I think the other thing too is you really need Jalen Tolbert to take the next step, because the fact being that, you know, after next year, unless you bring back Brandon Cooks is going to be in his last year of his contract this year.
Yeah, no, exactly. 100%. So, you're right. And, you know, like, I just keep hearing about this Ryan Flournoy guy, and like you look at his raw athletic score, very impressive. And they're saying like, no, this guy can run routes out there. And it's like, man, if you can do that, you have an incredibly impressive athlete who can play the position. That's going to bode well for you. And it's like, ooh, I don't know, man, that Ryan Flournoy pick is looking, you know, he could potentially be a player that we look at and say, he is a player. You know, I look at the wide receiver 3 spot and I see the 4th option on this football team, because I see Ferguson being the number 2 guy. Obviously, Lamb's the number 1 guy. I see Cooks being the number 3. And then I see the wide receiver 3 being the number 4, which makes the position not as important as it would be for a team that doesn't have, you know, a really damn good tight end like Jake Ferguson. But, you know, like, I still want that option to be there, because I want more options on this offense, to where it's like, hey, we're going to take away CeeDee Lamb. All right, well, we have Brandon Cooks and Jalen Tolbert or Jalen Brooks that can work you, or Ryan Flournoy that will give you work if you try and make us play left-handed here, which is what teams do come playoff time. They want you to play left-handed. You know, and I just another thing that I want to look into is this John Stevens kid. And I just think that, like, I look at a guy like that, I don't think he's going to blow you away with the amount of yards he's going to get this year, but I think he's going to make plays, and I think he's going to be reliable. He's going to be one of the guys where you watch on tape and it's like, oh man, like 3rd and 8, and Dak kind of just like threw it there, and he came down with a big play here, kind of like how Jalen Tolbert was in spots this year. Jalen Tolbert made some nice plays in spots this year. And the difference is a tight end 2 and a wide receiver 3 from what Tolbert was this past season are 2 completely different things.